Tonight, an update on the arrest of protesters at the University of Iowa. Then a lawsuit that could overturn a controversial Iowa bill.
And a look at the ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
All that and a profile on an Iowa State representative, along with making sure your facts are straight.
Also, where presidents are going to stop in Iowa and something for you to consider.
Good evening and welcome to The Update, your home for both news and politics.
From the local level to nationwide, we're keeping you up to date. I'm Jordan Tovar.
And I'm Johnny Valtman. And Jordan, it's good to be back from break, but while we were gone, there wasn't much going on in the Iowa City area.
Yeah, it's been relatively quiet in the terms of local politics, but we do have an update on an event that took place a month ago. So after protests took place against conservative speaker and noted detransitioner Chloe Cole's speech at the IMU last month, 6 protesters have been arrested recently on charges of interference with official acts and disorderly conduct. Individuals apprehended by the police are as follows: Tara Dutcher, John Horbuckle, Chan Dulin, Emma Denny, and there are 2 more in addition to those shown on screen. Vincent Schappa is only charged with disorderly conduct, and Harry Manalagad is reported to have used a microphone to, quote, encourage civil disobedience, unquote, and also reportedly said, quote, don't let the police tell you what to do, unquote. And on Emma Denny's report, she is reported to have hip-checked an officer trying to escort her from the road. And Johnny, like I was saying, it's been a relatively quiet week on the local front, but I believe you have some stuff you'd like to tell us that's going on around the state.
Yes, Jordan, and similar to Iowa City, it wasn't that busy around the state while we were gone, but there was something that popped up Tuesday that could have a big impact on Iowa. A lawsuit has been filed to block Senate File 496 from being imposed in Iowa. Lambda Legal, the ACLU of Iowa, and the law firm of Jenner Block LLP have filed the lawsuit on behalf of nonprofit Iowa State schools. The file includes the dubbed Don't Say Gay bill and other anti-LGBTQ+ legislation in public schools, which was signed back in May. Books and curriculum from the K-6 level have been removed as a result of the bill. 2 things are being asked from the lawsuit. One is to temporarily suspend the bill from the harm it's causing to the LGBTQ+ youth, and 2, the file be declared unconstitutional and permanently blocked. Currently, there are 7 Iowa families who are also backing the lawsuit. Here in Iowa, there wasn't much going on over break, Jordan, but I was looking nationwide and there were some pretty big stories.
Yes, and we have DITV's Jayce Bertrand in the newsroom to tell us about what's been going on throughout the nation.
Thanks, Jordan. And over this Thanksgiving break, a ceasefire was called in the Israel-Hamas war. The truce in the Gaza Strip was called to allow for hostage and prisoner exchanges between Hamas and the Israeli Defense Force, as well as to allow international aid to enter the region. The United States pushed for the ceasefire following weeks of both domestic and international pressure to bring a halt to the fighting. On Sunday, President Biden called for the truce to extend past last weekend.
That's our goal, to keep this pause going beyond tomorrow so that we can continue to see more hostages come out and surge more humanitarian relief into those who in need in Gaza. But the proof that this is working and worth pursuing further is in every smile and every grateful tear we see on the faces of those families who are finally getting back together again.
On Monday, the IDF and Hamas agreed to extend the ceasefire past that day's deadline to allow for more aid to enter Gaza, and both sides agreed to extend the truce 1 day for every 10 hostages exchanged. As of Tuesday, 69 Israeli hostages have been released by Hamas, many of whom were women and children. Among the released hostages was 4-year-old Abigail Moore Adan, the first American hostage released so far. 150 Palestinians, primarily women and children, have been released from Israeli custody in the exchange. Many of these Palestinians were taken prisoner by the IDF prior to the Israeli-Hamas war, and those in support of Palestine claimed they were brought into custody illegally. The ceasefire seems to be secure for now as more hostages continue to be exchanged, leaving many hopeful that Israel and Palestine's deadliest conflict in their history is finally coming to an end. And now I'm going to send back to Jordan and Johnny in the studio.
Thanks, Jayce. Reeling it back here in Iowa. We've been looking at some state representatives, Jordan, and we switched around some roles this week.
Yeah, and we're going to send it over to Cara, who has the candidate profile.
Thanks, guys. Last week we took a look at some of Iowa's Democratic candidates, and this week we're going to pivot and take a look at a Republican. Zach Nunn from Des Moines is serving his first term in Iowa's 3rd Congressional District after defeating 2-term incumbent Sidney Axne in 2022. Nunn graduated from Drake University with degrees in political science and international affairs before heading abroad to get his master's in international security from the University of Cambridge. He served as an active duty officer in the Air Force for nearly 20 years and now serves as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. Nunn has also served in the Iowa House of Representatives and the Iowa Senate. Some of his political goals and priorities include supporting Iowa's small businesses, making E15 ethanol available year-round, and protecting Social Security and Medicare benefits. He also feels strongly that the country should increase its security at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, the 2022 election, which is the one Nunn won, was a big get for Iowa Republicans, but his challenger is hopeful he can win the seat back for Democrats when Nunn's term ends. We'll take a look at him next week. Back to you, Jordan and Johnny.
Thanks, Cara. And Johnny, we've actually got some candidates that you and I are going to cover this weekend.
Yes, Jordan, it's going to be a busy weekend around Iowa as presidential candidates are coming to the state, as this Saturday we will see two of the leading Republicans stopping here in Iowa. Donald Trump will be talking at Kirkwood Community College at 3 p.m. While that's going on, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will complete his goal of doing a full Grassley. His appearance in Jasper County Saturday, where I'm from in Newton, will mean he stopped in all 99 Iowa counties. DeSantis will also be joined by Governor Kim Reynolds at the Thunderdome at 2. Vivek Ramaswamy is also going all out, as now until the caucus he has over 200 events scheduled in Iowa. If you are going to a pizza ranch throughout the week, you might just run into Mr. Ramaswamy. Nikki Haley won't be here in Iowa this weekend as she's turned to another caucus state in New Hampshire, a state that will get a lot of attention following the Iowa caucuses. In a recent NBC count, it revealed how many public events candidates have held during their campaign so far. The events span from May 23rd to November 27th. While Ramaswamy and DeSantis top out the list, Nikki Haley and former President Donald Trump are still behind others in the running. And this also includes Tim Scott and Mike Pence, who both dropped out. They both have more events than Haley and Trump. And Jordan, Thanksgiving I love, but I do know relatives over the holidays, they believe just about anything nowadays, and they say some things that aren't 100% true.
Yeah, Johnny, a lot of my relatives are Facebook savvy and they get into some pretty crazy stuff and they relay that crazy stuff to me. I just try to fact check them as much as I can. And speaking of that, we got Jayce Bertrand back in the newsroom to give us some facts that he wants to check.
Thanks, Jordan. I'd like to start us off this week by looking at recent social media posts about Pfizer's COVID vaccine. These posts claim that a DNA sequence used in the vaccine has caused cancer and other health defects in those who received the shot. In reality, the only evidence for this claim was a recent congressional hearing in which scientists behind the vaccine explained which DNA sequences were used for the development. Those DNA sequences are only prevalent in small amounts and as such do not pose any health risks. And next, I'd like to take a look at some posts about the January 6th riots. Recently released footage from the Capitol building shows that users claim to be a masked man flashing a federal badge at the camera. However, the item in the man's hand is not clear in the video, and public record shows that he has been charged for his participation in the riot and has no known ties to the FBI. And for our last piece of fake news for the week, I want to bring us back to Israel. Footage circulating on social media is being used to support claims that Israel was using the Al-Sharif hospital as a military base. However, the video of IDF soldiers raising an Israeli flag over a hospital was not at Al-Sharif, but rather at a United Nations facility. And so far, that is all the fake news that I could find over this Thanksgiving break, and so I'm going to send it back to Jordan and Johnny in the studio.
Thanks, Jayce. And Jordan, some relatives, they forget it's a PG household, and some of the ones Jayce brought to me, we definitely cannot run.
Yeah, some of them get pretty outrageous.
And so now we're going to line the tone up a little bit as we're going to send it out to Cara, as she has something she'd like you guys to consider.
Thanks, Johnny. Now, I had the opportunity during election week to talk with voters about what was important to them, and there were a couple of things that stood out to me when I was doing that. During interviews, there were a lot of people who didn't feel comfortable sharing their vote, or if they did, sharing their identity. This was kind of surprising to me because it seems that in almost everything else, people are falling all over each other trying to share their opinion the loudest. Even when it comes to politics, people are incredibly vocal online. So why the reluctance in person? Elections are the time for people to share their thoughts and opinions, in spite of the disagreement it can cause. Now, ideally, disagreement can lead to discussion, which fosters an environment where voters hear new perspectives and end up more open-minded. Of course, that's easier said than done, and we're definitely seeing a lot of polarization stemming from elections. But even if just one person stops to hear a new point of view, then it's worthwhile. Don't be afraid of disagreement. If it's something you feel strongly enough to vote on, have pride in that vote. Jordan and Johnny, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Cara, and thank you for tuning in to the update tonight, where you'll find all your local news and politics.
From the local level to nationwide, we've got you covered. Come back next week for another episode of The Update. For DITV, I'm Jordan Tovar.
And I'm Johnny Valtman. Have a wonderful night.